Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have a bit of an update. It's been a minute. I was like, I better get back onto it before another month goes by and then I'm just like gone. Hopefully this carries over to my live streams and I can get back to the swing of doing readings, but I was sick. I was injured from December up into January, and I just could not record in the state that I was in. And then after I was back, I could have started recording like weeks ago, but once I'm all out of it, I'm out of it. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute, and so I'm here to talk about the books that I got. I only got one deck. This is slowly becoming a book channel where I just talk about the books that I read and that I enjoyed. And yeah, but to get it over with, y'all can see what fucking deck I got now. I've been using it for my daily card draws, which I've been doing. Yes, I've been doing. I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, but yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure if you guys see this box right here, y'all have some good eagle eyes. I will say that, and y'all will be like, oh, is that? And yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is the Maria Tarot. By, I'm going to butcher her name. I'm pretty sure other people could pronounce this better. Masha Kulinovic. I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce her last name, but that is it. I got it from Kickstarter. I saw that it was available. I was like, ooh, a new rendition on the Thoth? Yes, please. Some of these are very beautiful. I really like that Hanged Man. The colors are quite well done. A bit dark at times, but I think that's just the color tones in the Thoth in general. But the cardstock is well done. The box is well done. Production value, it's well worth it. So good. Love how it shuffles. And so far I haven't really read with it. I've just been using it for the daily draws just because I've been like using the Thoth for the daily draws. And then it also came with this handy little Tree of Life. Thelemic Tree of Life, I'd say, because the star is He in here, and the Emperor is down here. Is the Emperor green? Right? My colorblind is showing here, but tell me the Emperor is green. I could have sworn the Emperor wasn't green, or I think green might be one of the colors for Aries, but I could be completely wrong. But anyways, and then we have the wheel of the astrological wheel with the tarot correspondences and the dates there, and so this is a very handy little chart to have on hand for anyone studying the Thoth, and I think this is great. I think people should get it. Should have it for studying. If you guys don't like the Crowley deck for whatever reason, I think this is a good alternative to his work if you want to try something within the same line of aesthetics, but you just don't want to work with it and you want a step away from Crowley himself. I totally get that. Anyways, aside from that, moving on from that, that's the only deck that I got, I believe. I think this one might have been one. This is a deck that I got in. I love Egyptian tarots, even though like I'm irked by the idea, the myth that tarot came from Egypt, that the Egyptians had tarot, and it's like people just see a figure, a drawing in a rectangle, and think that's the tarot and call it a day. And this deck has one other issue that I'm not a big fan of, but thankfully with the Kickstarter, it's a card that essentially becomes optional, but this is like the main card. And so I'm not a big fan of the ancient alien idea. I find it quite problematic because it kind of takes away the capabilities and the agencies that people way back in the day had. You know, they primitivize, is that the right word? They make people seem way more primitive than what they actually were, and they're like, they could have never have done these great feats of architecture. They totally needed help. Like, what, you don't think people aren't aren't dedicated enough to do stuff. Anyways, but the box is pretty cool. And this is by the same creator of the... Oh my gosh, what is it? It looks like the Mystic Mondays, but it's way better than the Mystic Mondays Tarot. Hold on. The Dream Vision Tarot. I'm not sure what edition this is. This might be the first edition. But she did come out with a second edition where the titles are in different places on the cards, and I wasn't really a big fan of that. And she is coming out with a third edition right now where the titles are now back where I kind of like them, but I'm happy with my first edition. I don't feel a need for it. I quite like it. I don't use it much, but again, production value's there. I kind of wish she stuck with this cardstock, but the linen cardstock on the Egyptian Tarot is very, very, I like it. I like it. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. So yeah, these, yes, it's nice to see them together. I like her artwork. It's minimalist, but fun. It's not like minimalist to where it seems lazy. So yeah, I quite enjoy it. I quite enjoy this. And yeah. So anyways, moving on from that, onto the boring stuff, which, you know, if you guys don't care, y'all can skip, but you know what? This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've been up to. Okay? What I've been reading. It hasn't been much of what I finished. I finished the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. Well, in the first trilogy series of Mistborn. There's another series that takes place a little bit in the future. I think that one's more... Would it be like more steampunk, maybe? I don't know. But anyways, to talk about this book, it's a really slow first part. If you can get through the first part, then you're like, okay, where is this going? Oh my god, what's going to happen? And then it grabs your attention. Like, you really got to get through this, the first 100 pages, and then it picks up. And then things start happening, and then you're like, oh my god, you know. Versus the first book where it's like, it's from the get-go, you're interested and and you want to follow along. This one's very, very slow. You know, at the start, I'm like, what are we doing here? There's some tension, there's some problems, like, how are we gonna, and then it picks up and you're like, oh, perfect. You know. Let's see. It's yeah. What else can I say about it? Other than you know, Vin is that bitch. You know, Ellen's father, Straff Venture. He's a POS. You know, we do not stan. Zane was an interesting character. I thought we were gonna see more of Zane, and then like at the ending, his ending, I was like, whoa. So spoilers, I guess, for this book. I think his name is Zane. Zane, yeah. It's such a generic name for like something where there's Ellen, Straff, Kelsier, Vin, you know, like these weird names. Though I like his choice of names. He has his names, Brandon Sanderson's names that he picks for his characters always have a good aesthetic to them. You can tell that there's an aesthetic to them, and I see this in his first book, Elantris, with the types of names that are in there. Some of them are a little hard to pronounce, like Krathen, but anyways, we'll talk about that in a bit. But I do like the aesthetic that he has with his names, if that makes sense. But yeah, this was a fun book, and then like she just like comes in and like Naruto when he saves the Leaf Village. I don't know, in Naruto Shippuden, when he fights Pain. Pain was honestly one of the best characters in that show. I don't give a shit about anyone else in that show. But anyways, enough about anime. We're not talking about anime here. We're talking about Vin, and Vin pretty much is like Naruto in that season where he fights Pain and he saves the Leaf Village essentially, and she does that kind of. It's obvious that she's the hero of ages, but yeah, and there's he also Brandon Sanderson also likes his body of water, or well, his bodies of water show up here and they kind of play a role in this as well. I'm trying to think if anywhere else, if there's like a powerful. I'm thinking of the Eye of the World now, where there's a lake there. not a pond. The eye of the world is like a pool of water. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and that happens here. The cover, what you see here are these ogre giant type people. What are they called? The Colossus. That's what they're called. The Colossus. I believe that's how you pronounce. I believe how you pronounce it. It's a fictional world. I'm pretty sure Brandon Sanderson pronounces it, says it a lot in some of his videos that you can find online. Very, very interesting figures, along with the Kandra. You get to see more of them, and you get to learn about them a bit more from the first one. In the end, pretty good, but a slow start. I was expecting, you know, for my attention to be held a little bit stronger. It took me a while to really get through this. Same with this book here. Elantris. I was still interested. I was very, what put me off, I believe this is Hrathen. I believe, again, Hrathen. Like, come on, how do we pronounce that? Why you put in an H and an R next to each other? Don't do that. Don't ever do that again, Brandon. That was a choice. Don't make it again. And I really didn't care for him at the beginning. Only towards like the halfway point did when he started having a crisis of faith, I'm like, finally, it's getting good. Finally, finally some good food. But Rauden and Serene, great characters. Very much, I think Rauden is the blueprint of a lot of his characters, from Kelsier to Kaladin. You see quite a bit more of his character in that archetype, that revolutionary Robin Hood type hero is in a lot of Brandon Sanderson's work, and they're always fun to read, really fun to read. And Serene, she's here to girl boss, she's here to gaslight, she's here to gatekeep, and I love it. I loved it. Again, really intense ending. Of course, everything picks up and wraps up at the end, but sequel bait. I'm like, I wanted more at the end. I was like, wait, let's see. I want to see this world now. What's going to happen? Apparently, there's a novella short story called The Emperor's Soul that takes place in the same world as Elantris. And that, you know, and I haven't read it, but I want him to write another book. But this book came out in 2005, 2000, yeah. And this was his first book. So we're almost 20 years without a sequel to Elantris. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if there's any Elantris stands out there, but I'm pretty sure if there are, they're probably frustrated that he, you know, I don't know, makes another Mistborn book instead of announcing, you know, working on Elantris, especially with like the secret projects that he dropped with, you know, the Tress and the Emerald Sea, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and what else? The Sunlit Man. All those being in the Cosmere, and people were like, okay, but like, what about Elantris? I'm pretty sure Brandon Sanderson's like, who? What's that? You know. But a fun read, but it's definitely his first novel. I will say that. And I don't know what I could critique to say to the view, like, oh, you should do this to make it better. Apparently there's a version that has even more content to it. He kind of did a stand with this book, like Stephen King did with The Stand. Apparently, I think there's like a few, like, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I just gaslit myself into thinking that there was a longer version out there, but all in all, I give it a 7 out of 10. I'd say read Warbreaker before you read this. Maybe you really don't need to read this. other than the fact that Hoyd is in this book, I guess but that's it. That's it. The next book I finished this before Sabriel, and this is one that I started. I got almost halfway through, put it down, restarted it, got to the same point, stopped right there. Don't ask me why, but it's Garth Nix's Sabriel. And once I read through it, I was like, oh, okay, work. I loved the depiction of the afterlife in this, as like there's this mystical sort of like, it's almost like we're in this alternative afterlife world. Yeah, he doesn't show us all of them. We only get as deep as like, I think the fourth gate of death, you know, of the afterlife. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to see more. I want to get to the end. What happens there? And I'm pretty sure we're gonna see that in maybe Lirael and Abhorsen. And yeah, what I don't like also is there's no description of what happens, for a good synopsis of the book in this one. So when I got this book, I think I really got it just going in blind. And this book should, honestly, I think this book could be a Netflix series, a little Netflix miniseries, or a movie. It definitely has the setup for a movie. I think it was definitely during a time, it came out in the 90s. It came out in a time when fantasy for young children was at an all-time high, but this book isn't really, I wouldn't recommend this for, like, where some people would recommend Harry Potter or, I don't know, the Spiderwick Chronicles for a certain demographic, for a younger demographic, I should say. This, I would say, like, middle school and up could probably enjoy this more. Definitely for sure high school. And Sabriel is a well-written character. I really enjoyed the discussion on this book by the, what's it called? Oh gosh, what's it called? Forced Textual Tension podcast, I think that's what it's called. They talk about this book. They talk about Mistborn as well in that one. They talked about Annihilation. I really enjoyed their talk on the Area X trilogy as well. I'll try to leave a link in the description for that channel. It's really, really good. And the last book I read, I just read this in the past 2 days. I picked it up, I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down because I feel like I had to get, not that I had to get through it, but like I'm like a disgusting train wreck I can't look away from. Very similar effect like Lapvona had on me. Lapvona by Otessa Mosfe, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But that is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She's an Argentinian writer. And it's really grotesque. It's about legalized cannibalism. So like, it's a horror book that's, with all the trigger warnings, well, not all of them, but it's quite surprising how disgusting content written is just, I want to say engrossing. I just can't not pay attention to it. I devoured this book for for lack of a better word. I devoured it. And the ending was truly like, when the ending was happening, I'm like, oh, this is gonna happen. And the last line is quite powerful. I would reread this book with a highlighter just so I can get some good quotes from it, and to find these quotes in the original Spanish, I believe, right? Argentine, Spanish, just to see in its original language, because there are some bits here and there, small pieces here, that I'm like, that sounds a little weird, because there's some that are like quite poetic and quite beautifully written, and where I'm like, I wonder what this would sound like in the actual Spanish. But for the most part, the translation is quite well done by Sarah Moses, and it's but there's a few phrases here and there, a few words that I'm like, is that really the word that was used here? Did Augustino really say that? But yeah, it's it's short. It's only just a little over 200 pages. It's a quick read, but it's quite it is quite grotesque. And I mentioned the language thing because one of the main things that features in this is how we use words to to desensitize ourselves to what we're actually doing. It's a book that can that when did this come out? Was this before the pandemic? I believe this was 2017. Yes, this was the before times. Oh, it was a simpler time. There are moments in this book where I'm like, is that really how it would play out? For speculative fiction, it's not as well done as like from what I've seen of the TV show. I should read the book. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. There, it's so like what she describes and how things go down in that alternate future dystopia. In The Handmaid's Tale is plausible, and that's what's horrifying about it. This, there is a plausibility in some of it, but there's moments in there that I'm like, I don't think we would have done that. I feel like humanity wouldn't do that, but there are things in here that ring true to what we went through during the pandemic, and we could kind of maybe read into the what's it called, the meat industry and all that, and how that and the discussion around veganism, like even though like it's cannibalism, it's like people still like prize meat over anything else in this book, and it's weird to what extent they go through. Also, the main character's sister is like the worst. there's plenty of disgusting humans in this book. Also, references to the occult, and with one character, and apparently I'm like, is there anti-Romani sentiment in this book a bit? Maybe, with how she describes one of the characters being Romanian. Right? Am I confusing things? I may be confusing things, but she describes a Romanian character, not Romani. I don't think they are Romani, no, but from Romania. So again, someone correct me. I'm an ignorant American, right? My ignorance here is showing, but how she describes him is quite like, I'm like, oh. But anyways, and also like how he has like books on the occult in his library, like he has grimoires there. So I'm like, what is he doing? And yeah, it's the possibilities of what the world would do if cannibalism was legalized. I'm like, oof. She touches on one thing about, essentially one thing that she doesn't touch on, which should be happening in this book given how long it's going on for. But I could be mistaken on the science behind it. But essentially, mad cow disease is an actual thing. And it's not what people think it is, but it's essentially what happens when we do cannibalism, or we eat food when we eat meat that was cannibalizing, essentially, if that's the correct term. She briefly touches on it, and I feel like that would have played a bigger role. Also, the timeline on it, how quick everything happens in this book is like, the main character used to work at a regular meat packing, butchering, slaughterhouse, and then all of a sudden a virus comes and makes all meat and animals inedible. And people have to get rid of their pets and all that, and it's a very cruel scene. There is also one chapter that I think honestly wasn't needed compared to like everything else that was happening, and maybe this is just because I'm like the typical like, no, not the doggies, does the doggy die at the end? This book definitely, like, the doggy dies at the end. That's kind of like, it could have been called The Doggy Dies at the End, but it's not about dogs, so. But there are puppies in this book, and that was like, I was like, why did she got to do that? Augustina, did you really have to add that chapter in there? I think if you cut out that chapter, I think no, but I think it's because it happens in the zoo, and the main character has a very strong emotional tie to the zoo, that's why she kind of had that scene play out in there. It was very grotesque, and I think it was like unnecessarily cruel in terms of like what the book was about. But again, I'm still coming to terms as to what this book was really about. You know, I honestly thought it was going to, for some reason I had it in my head that it would have been a female protagonist, a female main character. I would have actually liked to see a female main character in this book. I kind of low-key wanted like more perspectives, but what you get is honestly more than enough. And one other thing is the what else was it? I was about to say something else, and it just slipped my mind. It just slipped my mind. But yeah, I guess you could make a comparison between this and Okja and Super Size Me and what else? What's another movie that lands within this genre? Soylent Green. Is that the movie? Is that what it's called? I don't know if that's what the movie's called, but like Soylent Green is where the Soylent Green comes in. They reference that in this book. But yeah, oh right, that's what I want to talk about as well. The change of language and editing language in a way that helps people distance themselves from reality in a way. Kind of like, again, we kind of saw this with the pandemic. When we're going through such strange times, we're going through a pandemic. Like, you don't want to say epidemic. That's going to upset people. I'm like, yeah, but that's what we're going through. And not to be like, oh, people are so sensitive these days. But it's like, reality, honey. Reality. Strange times, like, oh my God. Like, just stab my ear with an ice pick. Like, what are you doing? You know, and here they do the same thing. That instead of calling it human meat or human flesh, they call it special meat, which I'm like, okay, like, girl, they're so annoying. Oh my God. But we would pull something like that. Humanity would do some shit like that. And there's a bit of like some conspiracy theory like undertones here, which I'm like, oh, you know, which I'm like, that rang really true. It's really interesting to read this book after the height of the pandemic, and just like recently, not too long ago, I think it was January, last month, I think. What am I saying? Not too long ago. Either December or January, we had another COVID outbreak, you know, a large spike. And then like, I guess nothing more came of it. I don't know. I didn't keep up with that. I don't keep up with the news. But just to say that like after the height of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, this book, I wonder how people that read it when it first came out and then going through the pandemic versus people who went through the pandemic and then read it or reread it. I want to see the different perspectives on this book. Because yeah, it was a I wouldn't say it's a fun read. Like, again, like La Bvona, it's like, how am I not putting this book down and not finishing it? Like, I finished it. I think Augustina Basterica knew when to, you know, take her leave. She knew not to overstay her welcome. That's what I want to say. So yeah, it's for the most part beautifully written, and given the gross content. But it, like I said, I read it pretty much in a day, you know, and it's, wow. Yeah. I'm like, it's one that's going to stay with me for a while. Another book that I read, and this is from a massive series, and it's very popular. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's from, you know, it's been around for a really long time, and I don't know why, like, even though it's been in my life for so long, but only now that I really sit down and read it, I skipped over a few parts. There are parts that you can skip over because, you know, it's a weird one out there. But the Bible, I've been reading. I read through the whole first book of Genesis. It wild. Wow, let me tell you. Jacob, you're it's on site, Jacob. It's on site. Okay. And trust. When I see him, it's on site. No, no, I'm just kidding. He's an interesting figure because he does fill in that trickster god archetype. And there's I could probably make a whole video essay on him, but no, that's too much work. But what I love about my version's better. First of all, it's NIV translation, the good translation. I'm just kidding. You should follow along with some disclaimers. But first of all, NIV, pretty like well-rounded for a translation, and what's great about the cultural backgrounds study Bible edition is that it has these references to ancient Mesopotamian mythologies and history and cultural contexts to what's going on in the Bible. And so, like, this was all really fascinating to read when they mention this, when they mention certain things in the Bible. What am I saying? Of course. But there's a lot of repetition. A lot of what people go through happens to other characters as well, but slightly different. And it's like, that's where you kind of gotta like, what's going on here? What's the difference here? So yeah, again, I'd recommend it. It's a fun read because you can be like, this bitch, the drama. Also, Book of Exodus, the whole like Exodus from Egypt is only like a little part of the Book of Exodus. Like, I'm like, oh damn, we got like a whole, how the hell did we get a 3-hour movie? 4 hours? How long is the Ten Commandments? How the hell did we get a 4-hour movie from this? But anyways, I'll probably read up some of the Zohar on the Book of Genesis maybe now. I feel a little comfortable now to do that. And yeah, I honestly, what I did was I obviously skipped over the genealogy. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I highly recommend getting this version. It's really fun to read up here on the notations of what this is about and the articles that they put in here for some of the references in the book, and the maps as well. And it's fun. It's fun to look at it. It gives and yeah. What else? What else is there to say? I started at Exodus, and Exodus is where the laws start coming in, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Because I don't really care so much about the laws. I'll take a gander at them. I just want the stories. You know, is there an edited version of just the stories of the Bible? You know, could we have that? You know, just a collection of like the stories. Like, can we do that? You know, or perhaps someone could do a sort of like a Circe or a Song of Achilles, or what they're doing with Greek mythology, but like modernize them for this. You know, not like what like Darren Aronofsky did with Mother or whatever, but like, or like what he did with, well, actually, yeah, what he did with Noah. More of that, please. You know, but you know, more emotionally well written. You know, there's some characters in here that I'm like, why are you acting like this? You know, why are you thinking that way? Why are you so dumb? You know, but I would have liked to see some emotional depth added to them. I would like to see how different writers could add some emotional depth to these characters that have just been so mythologized in a certain way. You know, to take a deeper look at, especially the women in the Bible, you know, because I feel like they're the ones that got the real tea, you know. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But anyways, it was fun. It was a fun read. I can't wait to continue reading Exodus. But at the moment, I am reading another massive book, though. It's 3 books in one, and that is the Inheritance Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I'm an N.K. Jemisin stan at this point. I finished the 5th season. I'm not sure if I finished the 5th season and gave my little review and thoughts on it when I finished it on here, but I did finish it. I really enjoyed it. I love it. I believe this was her first trilogy. I could be wrong, but this is fascinating to read. The pacing's like quick, but not too drawing to where it's giving me like whiplash, but it is a pretty fast-paced novel. Like, it's pretty trimmed up. Like, you know, it doesn't really take its time, but it does fill in gaps a bit, I think. I'm probably giving it a bad rap here, but I'm enjoying it. I'm halfway through the first book, and I like it. I like it so far. I like the cosmology of the series, of these gods of light and dark, and this goddess of dawn and twilight being, you know, and the creation that they created, the world that they made, and playing it all out, and it's so good. I'm like, what's gonna happen? I don't want to say too much of it. I'm gonna read through it and see if I can. I really wish that she dropped her other book. What's it called? She has another book. I think it should be here. Yeah, the Dreamblood duology. Here it is. But it's only in ebook format. I want it like this because it's only 2 books and they're not too big. So I'm like, it would make sense to publish it in a full format. If they could do this trilogy like this, then yeah, they can totally do the other one. But she also is releasing more short stories, novellas within this series. But after this book, The 100,000 Kingdoms, I'm going to read The Obelisk Gate, the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and then I'll come back to this. I'm all in book 2 mode, honestly, with all the series. Like, I finished Sabriel. Now I'm going to pick up Lirael. I finished The Well of Ascension, so that kind of broke the pattern a bit, but I am going to read Words of Radiance for book 2 in the Stormlight Archive. I'm going to read, and then after that, I'm going to try and get to Raven Song, another by the Wolf Creek series. The third book, I believe, is coming out soon. So yeah. I'm on a lot of book 2s right now. So yeah, this I can't wait to finish it. So yeah, that's all what I've been up to. I don't know what else if there's anything else that I'm missing, but yeah, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell for when you get notified when I go live, if ever these days. I don't know. I hope to go live because I'm like, I've got the free time. I can do it. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, hopefully the next time I see you guys, it'll be when I'm live streaming. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. And yeah, bye bye.